Have you ever thought about the purpose of government and politicians? We'll ponder that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Well, hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study once again, where we read and study the Constitution and teach the rising generation to be free. I'm glad you could join me. As always, please head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com, for all things Constitution Study. See what I'm working on, read articles, listen and watch podcasts and videos, and most of all, ask questions. I love questions. You can ask a question. You can see where I'm speaking and ask them in person, or you can ask them through the website. I love them. And today's Ponder This comes from a question. I was speaking at an event, and the discussion came up. It was actually at a college, and the person's was in a poli-sci class, and they had a once prominent federal politician speaking to them. And he described the purpose of politician was to protect us from ourselves. And that sparked a rather interesting discussion. So I thought I'd sit here and talk a little bit with you about what is the purpose of government and what is the purpose of politicians. So we can get the purpose of government directly from the Declaration of Independence. It says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to protect these rights, governments are instituted among men and derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. See, governments exist. Governments are created by the people to protect their rights. Kind of makes sense, right? We don't enforce all of our laws individually. We hire police to do that. We don't all show up at a house fire. We hire fire departments to do that. And I love people who either work or volunteer in those services, but it's the same way we hire governments to protect our rights. Now, there's a very important distinction to make between that idea of protecting our rights and providing for us. See, protecting our rights means protecting us from government, which is maybe a bit quizzical to people who work in government nowadays, but their job is not to provide food or shelter or health care, education, to provide anything. It's not to provide food and water. It's there to protect our rights. So governments do things like, well, they create police forces to enforce the laws that are designed to protect our rights. We have a legislative branch which is there to write laws designed to protect our rights. We have an executive branch which executes those laws to protect our rights. And we have a judicial branch so that we can exercise our right to petition the government for a redress of grievances to be heard, again, protecting our rights. Now, sadly, this idea has been lost in much of political debate today. As this particular politician said, most politicians, it seems, believe their purpose is to protect us, most often from ourselves, which is where you get laws that say, well, you have to wear a seatbelt. Now, don't get me wrong. I've worn a seatbelt since I was a small child because it's a smart thing to do. But telling me I have to wear a seatbelt is different, is not protecting my rights. It's restricting my rights. Now, that may seem to be a silly situation, but what happens when I wrote an article recently about protecting us from raw milk? That's not protecting our rights. That's controlling us. Whether it's the amount of water a toilet uses, or the type of light bulbs we can use, or even what must be taught in the education system. The fact that we have to go to school for a certain number of years. All of this is not a question of protecting our rights. It's government dictating to us. It's government ruling over us. It's this idea that once you're elected to government, you have authority over the people, which is not why this government was created. See, the politicians are running amok because we've lost the purpose of politicians. Now, the purpose of a politician is supposed to be different based on what office they are holding. For example, someone who is a member of the Federal House of Representatives, their goal, their job is to protect the rights of the people within federal law. In other words, they are to look at bills and they are to say, does this protect the rights of the citizens or not? If it does, well, they should support it. If it doesn't, they should get rid of it. But we've lost this idea of what is a right. They just say, well, you have a right to an education. No, you don't have a right to an education. Because in order to exercise that right, I have to infringe on the right of somebody else. I either have to force somebody else to do something, which makes me a slave master, or I have to get the government to extort money out of people to pay for that, which makes me complicit with extortion. Now, if you were to say a U.S. senator, their job is to protect the sovereignty of the states within federal law. Meaning when a law comes across that says that the Constitution says is not a job of the federal government, but is a job of the state government, the role of the senators look at this saying, well, is this a power given to the federal government or is it a power reserved to the states? If it's reserved to the states, then they are to oppose it. That's their job. The problem is, as I keep saying, we've lost this idea that government rules. We've adopted the idea that government rules over us rather than government represents us. That, governments are supposed to be instituted to protect our rights, not to tell us what our rights are. We tell them what our rights are, and it's their job to protect us. That's what the Constitution set up. That's the system that was created. And by losing that, we've lost so much of our freedoms, our liberties, and even the ideas that were so foundational to the beginning of this nation, and that governments are created by us to serve us, not the other way around. So when the next time a politician says their job is to take care of you, remind them, no, their job is to work for us, to protect our rights. That's what we hire them for. They are our employees. We pay them, we hire them, we have the authority to fire them. And maybe if they were slapped, had their wrist slapped when they came up with such foolishness, we would not have governments that are trying to take over everything. That think we should be a socialist nation where the government is in charge of everything. They control the means of production. Where they think the government knows best how we should pay for our health care, what health care we should have. It's that general idea of who is in charge. I did another article on that is, who's the boss? Who's in charge? Does the government work for us or do we work for them? If the people began to understand and then to vote with the understanding that the government works for them and they're to hold their representatives responsible, perhaps our freedoms wouldn't be in such a state. Would the country be a lot different? Eventually, it would change over time, yes. And maybe some things would not be as easy. Maybe some things wouldn't be as good. But liberty means the opportunity to do things, not the guarantee of the outcome that you want. So that's what I was pondering. Again, it was a great question. I want to thank the person. Hopefully, you'll hear this and know who you are. But I'm really thankful for that question because it allows us to discuss a very important topic, a very important idea of what is the purpose of government? And is the government we have doing the job? The other part of the Declaration of Independence says when governments don't do that job, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. And I think it's about time we realize the government is not doing the job it was created for. And it's time for us to alter that. And I'd much rather alter it at the ballot box than try to abolish it on the battlefield, because that would be a lot worse, a lot uglier situation. So I hope this made you think. I hope you'll consider that the next time someone says the role of government is to take care of you or to provide for you or anything like that. Think, is that really the purpose of government? Head over to this website, constitutionstudy.com. Please help those that are working to help support the work that we do here. Let me know what you think. Ask your questions. It may end up on another episode of Ponder This at the Constitution Study. Have a great day.